Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Welcome to the Founders Tea. I'm waiting for this all day. I'm really excited to hear more about your businesses and hear about your journey in starting your businesses. So without further ado, let's start. I want to introduce Yasmin, Naya, and Saron. So first, I would like each of you ladies to tell me a little about your business, what the name of your business, and just what you want to tell about your business before we hop into the questions.
Sure.
I was going to say, who wants to go first? Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Yasmin Mattox. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Arkatecht, and I always have to give the disclaimer: no, we are not an architecture firm, not even in the tech sense of the word. We spell it Arkatecht, and we create web-based professional advancement tools for working parents. We do so because we think it's pretty screwed up that the status quo is that once you become a parent, certainly mothers have this issue, and I think a lot of mothers can relate. You know, you're expected to have setbacks, even though you are ambitious. You want to go far in your career. You want to professionally develop, and so the whole mission of Arkatecht is to flip that on its head and say, "Nah, we're not going for the old okey doke. We're going to help working parents do what they believe is their calling, and really accomplish their goals and the, with respect to both of the loves of their lives, their careers and their children, their families."
Thank you. Definitely hear more about that. Naya?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Naya. So I actually have two companies, but I'll probably just mainly talk about one here. So I am the founder of Frau Wies. We are a Black woman in tech business and community. So we empower Black women with tools, resources to upskill, and our mission and purpose is to help Black women gain technical roles, but also stay in those roles. So we only work with businesses that prove that they care about the well-being of Black women, and so we have a very serious process of which I speak with each company, and we work with them through hiring folks from our community all until like when they actually hire them, their first 30, 60, 90 days. And my second business, I help other entrepreneurs to automate their processes and workflows.
Thank you. Saron?
Hello, everyone. My name is Saron. So I had a company called CodeNewbie that I ran for 6 years, and CodeNewbie did podcasting, community for people who were learning how to code, conferences, meetups, a bunch of different things, a bunch of different content and programming for people in tech. And I sold that company December of last year. I currently consult for the company, but it is officially exited and not mine anymore, which is weird. And then I started another company a couple months ago called Disco, and we're a platform to find and listen to audio courses. So we're producing courses starting with technical content. Our first bundle is on machine learning, which is very exciting. I feel like if you can teach machine learning through audio, you could teach anything through audio. So it's a very, very fun challenge. Just hired our first couple of producers to work on the courses. So really excited about that. Yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Well, thank you and welcome, ladies. This is really exciting. I have so many questions, but given our time, I have to narrow it down. But definitely want everyone to hear about your businesses and just your journey in starting your businesses. So why did you start your business? And anyone can start. We can work from right to left, and maybe your left and my right, but let's just hop around. We can do a round robin. There we go.
I can go first. So the first company I started, CodeNewbie, was definitely an accident. It was not meant to be a business. It was not meant to be anything that generated money. It was a little side project that I did just for fun to help people. And it started as a really simple Twitter chat. I would use the hashtag CodeNewbie, and then on Wednesday nights, I would tweet out little questions and people would respond. And eventually we grew into this community who wanted more things. things. And then I kept giving them those things. And then at some point, a company reached out and said, hey, I'll give you $200 if you run an ad on your podcast. And I was like, holy crap, I can make money from this. And that's when it went from like fun side project to like a hustle. And so it was purely an accident, not intentional at all, but really happy with how it ended up. Disco is very different. With Disco, it's very intentional. I am a lot smarter this time around, a lot more purposeful this time around. And I wanted to start this business because I just knew that I just always want to be an entrepreneur. I just can't see myself working for someone else in any like long-term capacity anyway. And I was really excited about, if I actually planned it, right? Like if I from the beginning thought I'm going to make revenue and I'm going to have a customer and it's not accidental, what could it be and how could that grow and what would that be like? So it was really kind of wanting to prove to myself that I could have, because with CodeNewbie, there was the community, which were the listeners, but then the sponsors were like how I got the money, right? So like the whole advertising model always felt, it's kind of weird. And so with this, I was like, I want to get paid by the user. Like I want to have that direct relationship. What does that look like? So it was really in search of kind of answering that question and wanting to see how far I could take a different intentional business that led me to starting this one.
Thank you.
I guess I can go next. I'll say that before I started Arkatecht, I actually had a research and consulting business. So my background is in research. My degrees are in political science and international affairs. And so I had the good fortune of finding a job a couple of months before I graduated from graduate school. But then having been in that job for about 11 or so months, and this was still within the first 3 or 4 years following the recession, I got laid off. And I very quickly had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? Because I'm located in Rochester, New York. And Rochester is a whole 6 hours away from New York City, a whole, 9 hours, maybe 8 hours if you're heavy footed, to DC. So there was nowhere I could go to pursue a career in foreign policy, which is what ultimately I thought I was on track for. I continued to live here. My husband is my husband's here as well. But after having been successful for about 3 or so years, a couple of years actually, of doing that, I had my second of 3 daughters. I had much worse postpartum depression than I had the first time around. And I literally could not function at the level that I needed to for that previous business. And so that ultimately gave rise to the idea that, at least in my book, the most joyful part of my life, having a family, having children, should not be the determinant of my career failing. There should be tools in place to make the process of really being at one with that transformation that happens, right, when you become a parent, so that you can be as successful professionally as possible. And so that's why Arkatecht was started. I think I was pretty ambiguous before in terms of what product we actually have, but we have a platform that provides recommendations, curated recommendations for professional development events, as well as a mastermind group for working parents, where we bring in experts in the fields of childcare, K-12 education, and employment law to really create a two-pronged approach to helping parents navigate work-life challenges that often impede professional development.
Nice. So the reason why I started Frauvies, there were a couple of different reasons, but the main one was because I had never found a community that was very welcoming to Black women in tech over the years. So I should also give some background that I've been in tech for over 10 years. And it really wasn't until I started working at startups that I started to go through racism. So when I worked in the corporate world, I'm pretty sure I did go through it, but it wasn't it wasn't as bad as when I worked at startups. And I realized, like, okay, I've never worked with another Black woman And then I started to also realize like there were no Black women in the company or any of the companies that I ever worked at. And I realized I didn't have a network of people that looked like me. Like I had no one to talk to when I went through racism at work. And even though some folks tried to be there, it just wasn't the same. And so that was part of what really started Frau Wies. At that point, I'd kind of went through a couple of different like really bad experiences at a couple of different companies. And I always knew that I wanted to like go full time and start my own business. I started a couple of like businesses throughout high school and college where I fixed cell phones and did like a help desk work. So it wasn't something that was kind of new to me, but after I did a solo trip in Europe in 2018, I just spent 3 months just like traveling by myself. I guess some people like to call it, it was me finding myself. But that really kind of made me realize that like I didn't want to put up with startups. I didn't want to put up with the racism. And I know that like folks, think and they say and they know that entrepreneurship is hard, which is very true. But the mindset that I had was, okay, either I can work at startups and work towards someone else's mission and their life goals, or, I can go through my own thing and work through my life goals and kind of set my own life, my own path. And so I definitely knew that it wasn't going to be easy, and it was very hard, especially last year. By the way, I also live in Romania, so I'm like all the way like in like Europe, and it's like there are barely any Black people here, and that was a challenge. But the low cost really let me be able to really focus on just building and really focus on the members that we have. I don't think that if I lived back in New York City where I'm from, that I would have been able to really focus on the members and not the money so much. And I think that has helped now, where it's like now we are making more money, but it's because I was able to give our members that, like the one-on-one time that they needed.
Thank you. I have so many questions in my head now. I'm not sure where to start with all my questions. But first, I saw a common theme. Everyone has built a business based on being excluded or needing something more that they didn't see in a 9-to-5 typical space. So tell me your experience with that. Like, starting a business is truly hard, but just like, what were some of your pain points other than just, it started from you personally, but how did you now take that personal pain point and create a business out of it? Anyone can start. Naya, you want to take it, or when we talk somewhere else?
Yeah. So I mean, okay. So for me, it's a little bit like hard to answer that question because most of the pain points that I went through, I kind of knew they were going to happen. So like one of the things that I did that probably many other entrepreneurs do is like listen to podcasts and like other people's stories, and really get to see like the things the things that other folks are doing wrong. And so I kind of tried to learn from other people. And so there were certain challenges that I knew was going to come, and so I tried to brace myself. Of course, like there were some things that did happen that I was not expecting, but I think what has been really great is having a really great camp of Black women, whether it's like the actual members that are part of Frau Wies, or whether it's just, folks that I've met over the years now. So it's one of those things where there are challenges, but they haven't even felt like challenges because I've had just really great background and like support.
Thank you. Yeah,
I'm the next. Oh, sorry.
Perfect. No, you're good.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I think it wasn't so much pain points as much as like anxiety points. I feel like there's just so many moments where, I'll send an email and I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, I hope they'll give me that money. I hope people will sign up. You launch a website and you're like, I hope someone sees it. Like, there's just so much just anticipation and just hoping. And I feel like every step of the way, you're like, is it like, am I crazy or is this going to work? Like, those are the two choices, right? It's either like, does anyone care? Like, that's the number one question I think at every start way is like, is it just me, or does anyone give a damn on any level? And especially with CodeNewbie, it was a bit easier because I wasn't trying to start a business. It kind of happened to me. So I didn't have as much anxiety over whether or not people wanted it. But when we launched new products, I did, right? So when we did the conference the first year, I was like, okay, we have this online community, but do they want to meet each other? We launched a new podcast, and I was like, okay, you were fine with these interview-based shows, but now that we're like teaching you computer science, do you want to know computer science? So there's just all these moments with every launch, with every email, with every publication. You just don't know if that's the moment you realize that this isn't going to work. And so that anxiety is just always there. And every time you think you squash it on something else comes up. So you never quite get to get away from it. So that's been my experience.
That fear of failure, which keeps so many people from actually launching or even starting their own business. Absolutely. And we all know in life you're going to be rejected. Like, nothing is just, especially from being women of color, it's never easy. We see the shows around entrepreneurship, like, oh, that's great to get funded, just with ideas. Like, nope, we have to do way more than just an idea.
And actually, you nailed it, because for me, it's less failure and more rejection, because when you get rejected, you don't actually know if you failed. Right. Because if someone doesn't like your product, maybe they just didn't like the color blue you picked. You don't know. You know what I mean? But either way, like, you got rejected, but like, did you fail? Maybe if you just tweaked one thing, you'd be off and it'd be great. You just don't know. So I feel like for me, the thing that, could happen to me that I can almost control my failure, because I can always get up and try again. I can pivot. I can control that to some degree. But if I'm rejected, I'm rejected. Like, there's nothing I can do to, you can't like make someone love you. So I think that's the part that to me was just very terrifying.
Thank you. Yasmin?
Yeah, no, absolutely to all of that. I think two of the, to use your term, pain points that I experienced. One, I'll start off with the fact that, some of the dogma, right, in the tech space especially, is that you need to have a co-founder, right? And co-founder and having a co-founder, that whole, I don't want to call it a myth, but that whole archetype, right, is very specific to very specific segments of the population, right? And for one, I think it's also specific to people who have the type of personality to cultivate the types of relationships where you're going to really have somebody like you're going to be tight enough to feel that they're worthy, and vice versa, of co-founder status. So one of the biggest pain points that I've had to figure out is what it means not to have a co-founder and what it means to actually do what you need to do, even though you don't have a co-founder. So for me, I do not have a co-founder. And I think that's partly personality, but also other reasons. But what I do have is I have a really tight circle of female founder friends, of women founder friends. And they're also Black. And it's very much, to use the term, a safe space where we can yuck it up. We can be very vulnerable. We can be very real. Okay. Even though what we say may not be pretty, we can be real, and we know that we have each other's backs. So in terms of addressing that pain point, if somebody tells you need to have a co-founder, take it under advisement. And if you know that that's not you, keep it moving and find who your people are, and just make sure that you do have somebody to bounce off ideas with, bounce off, how it feels to be rejected, and things like that. The second thing also is really understanding that while you should be coachable, and that doesn't mean by some muckety muck advisor, right? That just means being open-minded enough to listen to people, right? To understand, as my grandfather said, you don't know what you don't know. So when somebody recognizes that in you, let them tell you a little bit of something. And so be coachable, but also have enough good sense to follow your gut, to follow your own intuition. And so when you see something, especially for all of the brilliant Black founders that I come across now with increasing frequency, if you feel that there's a gap in the market for something and you could fill it, don't let somebody else with no lived experience, professional background, etc., in the space tell you otherwise. Again, take it under advisement and keep it moving and keep on going. Obviously, do your customer discovery, whatever you need to do, but find your people, right? To stay grounded, be coachable, but also trust your gut, right? We've got however many years humans have been around, we've got gut instinct for a reason. Use it.
Thank you. You touched on something very important, Yasmin. Another theme is finding your tribe, especially when you're starting a business. Like that is very important, whether or not you have a co-founder or not, just finding that community that you can actually, like I said, bounce around ideas off of and just have that dialogue so you won't lose focus. You may have to pivot, but you won't lose focus because we know it's easy to be an employee. That's the easiest thing you'll do in your life is being someone's employee, period, hands down. That's easy. But starting a business is the hardest thing you're going to do next to having children. That's probably the first or second, depends on the person, how they see it. I wouldn't even say relationships. That's something else. But mainly a business and starting a family is one of the hardest things you're going to do in life. So not to get so off topic, because I can go there. So, see, I got myself off topic. Look, being live. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So next question. How did you know starting a business was the right thing for you? I think we kind of touched on a little bit, but if you can go a little bit more in detail about your personal stories of why you started that business for you. And anyone, we can start with Saron?
Yeah, I can start. So the first time I was working at Microsoft when I kind of made the decision of, do I want to invest in my career at Microsoft or do I want to really focus on being an entrepreneur? And obviously I made the decision to be an entrepreneur. And I think for me, I just really loved this idea of building something that didn't exist and making it great. And I don't really feel like there are many opportunities to do that at a company. And even if you have that opportunity, you don't own the thing you built, right? Like you built it for the company. So it's not yours. And I kind of came to that decision a second time. And to be fair, I tried to be an employee. It just didn't work. So I did get a job and I lasted 3 months and I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is terrible. It was a really great job. I worked with wonderful people, very talented people, but I just realized that I just had that itch. I was like, I need to go and like build my own thing and just start from scratch, see how big I can get it. And if it doesn't work, I'll just build something else. I'm no shortage of ideas in this world. And so I just really felt like I just really wanted to build something of my own and really just see how far I could get. And I just couldn't find, I couldn't fulfill that desire at a job, at least not one that I've heard of so far. So I just had to keep being an entrepreneur.
That's what's up. Knowing thyself. Naya, I see you unmuted yourself, so you're next.
Yeah. So this I kind of mentioned in a previous question earlier. But for me, I really love this theme and this thought of like creating your own lifestyle. So like for me, I really love that, the fact that you can create your own business and you can be anywhere in the world and you can travel is like something that's really cool to me and something that is really dear to my heart. Like what I really love about being able to like start my own business is like being able to like say who I actually work with. And I know like it might sound really crazy, but like even though I'm making a lot less than I was making in New York City, I definitely just feel a lot more happier now. And that's because, last year, like I was able to like go like live in like Germany, like on the countryside and like, live next to a farm. And I really, really love that. For me, I just find a lot more happiness in being around nature. I find a lot more happiness of like getting to know other cultures, other backgrounds, and I feel like it makes you like just in general a much better person. I feel like, you know, like especially coming from the US, I think that we have this idea that, you know, I mean, like now things have definitely changed, but I think like most Americans, we just have this thing that like we're the greatest country and like we're best at like everything. And then you go outside of the US and you see that, you know, that it's not the case, and you see that like, you know, yes, the US has things that they're great about and things that, you know, are obviously not so great, but I mean, it's really the same everywhere. But what I really love it, you know, especially being here in Europe, is that like folks, you know, they have their job, they might have their businesses, but they still find time for family. They find time for friends, for like travel. And like for me, I really love being able to like, you know, at like, you know, a certain time, just clock out and just like say like, hey, like I'll be out for like, you know, the next 2 days because I'm going to the mountains like with my friends. Like I love being able to just have that kind of say in my life. And just for me, I just felt a lot more happier, you know, just being able to create my own path, and just also like being able to, you know, work with the right people, which has been really great. Also, like when you work at a company, like you can't control like who's part of your team, but when you have your own business, like you can choose like, okay, if this isn't working with this person, you can just, you know, part ways and you don't have to work with them. And for me, like that's been huge in just creating this life of like happiness and being able to like travel.
Thank you. Yasmin?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I know when I tell people that, for one, I've known for a few years now that I do not excel. Okay, I'll use that term. I do not excel as a full-time employee for anyone or anything, just because, you know, I like being untethered, to use that term. I like having options. And, you know, don't get me wrong, most of my friends, most of my family have full-time positions as employees. And that could be a wonderful thing if it's what you want and if it fits into the goals that you have in mind. But I've known for the last few years that I really enjoy building things, which has been a common theme. I like building things. I like testing things, experimenting. And there's only so much of that you can do as an employee, right? Especially if you're in oftentimes a larger company, because of bureaucratic reasons. It's very hard to push through that kind of bureaucratic inertia to really do some fun things. People who can do that are extremely lucky, and they're few and far between. But I also knew that if I could make it happen, I wanted to spend more time with my kids. It probably sounds like something right out of what Andy Griffith's show, right? That like my husband and I now mind you, okay, because of COVID, our two older daughters go to school for the school calls it half a day, but they're not going to put the wool over my eyes. Okay, we love them, but 2 hours in-person instruction is not half a day. Be that as it may, you know, I really enjoy going with my husband to drop them off at school and then 2 hours later hustling to pick them back up. I can't do that as a full-time employee. I really couldn't even do that as a part-time employee. So for me, it's always been a combination of how can I really express myself and you know, the mind that I have and the talents that I have and the people who are near me and their talents to build something great, and also meet my very real personal family needs and goals. And so if it's not hokey enough for you, I'm in the right, you know, business for that. But yeah, I mean, some people know, and that's not to say that I was not a good full-time employee, because I was. I have the receipts to back it up, but I often think that employers know quite quickly which of their employees really belong there and which are best to take flight. And if you work for somebody who really has your best interests at heart and their own, then you let people professionally develop and advance, even if that means leaving you, and guaranteed you two, you three, however many people will come back and do wonderful things together. Because that's what I found with Arkatecht, especially over the last 6 to 8 months.
That's true. Just in general, with the way things going now in COVID, things that we think we can do before, now we can do due to the fact that we've been forced to do it. And I think a lot of folks now are thinking entrepreneurial. Like, okay, this job was great. I'm able to keep a roof over my head, money in my pockets, my family fed, myself fed. However, I want to do something more. And now a lot of people are starting side businesses or side hustles and trying to get themselves ready so they can exit stage left. And I was one of those people, I was drinking the juice for years, did everything right. And then once I left the 9-to-5 job for the past 4 years now, I'm like, I can't do it. I try to get a part-time job. I'm like, exit, I can't do it. You start seeing all the cracks in the system and how it can be done better. You're like, you know what, you can do this, you can do that. And just like you said, having the freedom. One, you're location independent. You can take your job on the road with you, no matter if you're traveling around the world or you sitting from your living room to your backyard, or you're going to the park. You can do whatever you want to do with your business, and it's your time. So going into that, how was it hiring? Like your companies, like hiring people, like now you're management. Now you're the person they're like, I don't want to do this 9-to-5. Now you're that person. So how does that feel being on the other side of it, where now you are management and you're trying to help your employees, your team develop so they one day can do what you did?
I can start with that one. This is a really good question. So I just hired 2 people. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So I just hired 2 people. I onboarded them this week. We just finished our first week together, and yeah, when I was hiring for the producer roles, I was looking for people who were really passionate about being producers. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I was hiring for. I was hiring for people who, they're a little bit on the greener side. They're definitely a little bit less experienced than frankly what I was going for, but they did a better job. They showed better, passion. They asked really good questions. They were really invested in the business. They did better I had them do a take-home assignment, and they did better than people who had like 15 years of experience. And so I really looked for people who were really passionate about being producers. And that's one thing I want to say is, for me, like having a full-time job, not even having a full-time job, because let's be honest, having a business is you work in overtime all the time. But in terms of being an employee, that's not the life for me, but there's nothing wrong with being an employee. You know what I mean? Like being an employee is a really good deal. Like you have guaranteed health insurance. Even if you don't do like a great job, you still get paid. You know what I mean? Like if I don't do right by my users, they fire me. Like you have a lot more leeway when you have an employee or when you are an employee. So like, I don't want to like, knock that or say like, you're stupid if you're not an entrepreneur. I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. And so for people, I'm not looking for people who want to be me. I'm looking for people who want to be the best version of the thing I am hiring for. And ideally, especially just being so early, people who really want to be part of the strategy conversation. With my 2 producers, we had a lot of conversations this week on like, what's a 5-year plan? What's a 10-year plan? Do we want investors? Can we bootstrap? Like we had like really deep conversations, and they were into it, and they had opinions, and we felt like really building this thing together. And I don't think they're invested in becoming entrepreneurs. They're invested in becoming part of a team that had really big goals and in being the best producers that they can be. So that's usually what I go for.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you have a team or even have employees, can speak to just that transition.
Yeah, no, definitely passion. I always think back to what my grandfather told me when I think I was like 5 years old, and we were trekking around Cape Canaveral at NASA and checking out the museum, which is that there are few things that will keep you going as well as intellectual curiosity. And so as my grandfather would say, Yasmin, don't tell me you're bored after you finished reading whatever book. Boredom is a state of mind, right? So I look for intellectual curiosity. I don't know if there are Wegmans supermarkets where you all are, but the Wegmans is all over the Western New York area. Wegmans is I think the #1 rated supermarket in terms of employee satisfaction, but I digress. So I mentioned Wegmans because Wegmans mantra, their whole way of thinking is you hire for character because you can always teach skills. So, good people is good people, whatever their disciplinary background is, right? If they're a physicist, we can work with you. If you are into the humanities, we can work with you too. Are you intellectually curious? Are you an honest person? Do you have a good work ethic? Do you see yourself doing something in service to humanity, right? What's your philosophy? So I look for people who are good people, who are honest, who have a good sense of humor, because Lord knows, especially this year, you're not going to survive without it. One of the great Southern sayings, you got to laugh sometimes to keep from crying. But yeah, more so than skill set or anything else, really curiosity. Do you want to know what you don't know? And do you want to know it? Do you want to learn? That's what I've looked for.
Thank you. Naya?
Yeah, so for me, it might be a little bit different here. So when I first started, actually both of my businesses, I was completely insane and I started them both at the same time. And when I started the second business, which is an automation-based business, I had this like grand idea that I was gonna go and try to raise money, and then I was gonna try to hire a team, and actually did have a team of 2 that were helping me build the product at the time. And probably about halfway into Q1 of last year, I read the book Company of One by Paul Jarvis and Start Small, Stay Small by Rob Walling. And honestly, both of these books kind of changed my view of what I actually wanted to build. So I didn't actually both of these books made me realize that I didn't want to build a big business. I just wanted to build something that I could create my own path. And, I didn't want to have this grand exit, or I didn't, want to build this $1 billion unicorn. It was just something that both businesses I'm very passionate about. And I just wanted to grow to a place where I'm serving people in some sort of way, and being able to create my own lifestyle. But when I do outsource, whether it's for a project, it's usually folks that I already know. So one of the things, and this goes back to my experiences working at startups, I choose to only work with people that have a human first mindset. So that is something that is really important to me. So I don't care if it's an AI startup, if it's a startup for automation. I feel like the people that work behind these businesses, I feel like it's really important that they think of people first and human first, and everything they do in their life is to help others or to help better others. So those are folks I usually tend to work with. Just because, not only from the business side, but as a team, I feel like those folks are much better to work with. I find that I don't work well with people who are driven by money, and there's nothing wrong with being driven by money at all. But just for me, there's some people who in their business, they put money over people, and I just cannot work with the team that they put money over people. So when I have hired out or I've outsourced, that's something that I always look for. And those are things that are, to me are really important.
Thank you. Have me thinking as well. Definitely you want someone that is a passion too. They're invested as much as you're invested, even though it's not their business, because they're going to always bring their best. And that's very important. I was talking to my stepson. He was I was talking about being an entrepreneur. He was like, you don't want to work? No, I want to work. Just want to do something that brings me joy, whether or not I get paid for it. I feel pure joy in doing it. And I would love to get paid for it as well, but I actually love doing it. It's something I like doing. So with that, what is the hardest part of your journey so far?
Okay, I think I haven't gone first yet on the question, so I'll go first here. Oh man, there's so much. I'll try to keep this one positive. Like even more so with Fraudies, what has been so difficult is that like one, companies assume that we're a nonprofit, and two, I'm always expected to do things for free, and that's been really challenging. Is that I actually work with other folks who are in my same vertical. And so a lot of the businesses don't know that we all speak with each other. So there have been plenty of times, and by the way, like the way that we make our money is through like ads, through sponsorships. Something that that we haven't done yet is we haven't like charged our members. That was one of the things that was really important to me when I had wanted to join other women in tech communities, especially at a time when I didn't have the money. It was something that created a barrier for me. So it's something that we just chose not to do, well, at least for now. And so we make money through sponsorships and like ads. And so what was really difficult was one, from some companies, I would hear these like weird things where like they felt like that they shouldn't have to pay for a sponsorship or pay for an ad because they felt like this was like they kind of felt like it was charity work. Like they felt like because this is a Black owned business and because the folks that we're catering to are Black women, that it should be more of like charity. And that was something that was like really hard. And like, that's something that I didn't think would even happen. So that was something that was quite difficult. But one of the things that does happen as well is that like sometimes I'll like speak with a company and like we'll show them our packages, prices, etc. And they'll come back to me and it's like, oh, like this is like too much, or like, we don't have the budget. But they don't know that I know other folks who are in the same vertical, and they would go to other folks and they would pay them, even though our numbers are very similar, but because they catered to a more broader audience, they just felt like that was more of like value. So I even had folks come to me and say, well, like maybe if you let like white women into your community, or maybe if you open up to like also Black men, then maybe we'll, work with you. And it's like, well, that's not why we exist. Like we exist because this is who we are focusing on is Black women. And our goal is to help Black women stay in technical roles. So last year it felt very hard, like every week having to like explain to people like why it's important that our community support Black women. So that was something that was definitely really challenging. And what is also odd too is that like after the protests that have happened this year, we saw a lot of those same companies come back and and say sorry, and they didn't realize the things that Black women go through, and they didn't realize that there was a real challenge. And that was also kind of odd because it's like, well, I told you this like a whole year ago, and we went through this whole thing, and now all of a sudden, because you see video of or you see on like Twitter threads of, Black women actually saying this is what they're going through, or that they need, help getting into certain roles. Now, all of a sudden you have this like light. So that's been kind of hard, but it's also been hard to just like stay positive with these folks. But I've also learned like who not to work with, and, who we should not help folks get jobs at their companies. So.
I want to make a comment, but I have got a 10-minute signal. But Yasmin, that was a real expression, and I understand. Like, really? Oh, yes. We can talk about this all day. Like, this could be a whole session on how real it is out here as a woman trying to get the same funding, if not more funding, for similar type of businesses or pain points. But just it's the gender is different. We can talk about that it can definitely be a session. So thank you, Naya, for sharing, because that's real. Yasmin, since you're unmuted, you want to take it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think for me it's been, and I think this relates to finding your tribe, right? Finding your people. There comes a point, I think, in most, if not all, entrepreneurs' journeys where they wonder, and they may get to this point multiple times a day, multiple days throughout a month, any given period of time, but you wonder, is this the moment that I bow out, right? Have the hits kept on coming to the point where you're like, you know what, damn, maybe I should just wrap it up. But as somebody who has a background in research, who actually did a lot of research at my former role at Rochester Institute of Technology Center for Urban Entrepreneurship, I forget the statistic now, but it's more than 55% of entrepreneurs, especially Black women entrepreneurs, bow out far too early than they should have, in terms of when you get outside eyes looking at things like your financials, looking at your business plan, whatever it is, that outside, an outside audit would say, no, if you had done X, Y, and Z with some support, you would have had this runway. And then once you hit that runway, you would have, likely had these milestones, and you could have taken off. You could have conquered the world. So, I think it's important to, again, trust your gut. But when you get to points where you feel like you are about to bow out, don't, before you speak to somebody else and get at least one or two other objective opinions, because there is too much investment on an individual and community level into you, into us, to bow out before you really need to. So I'd say that.
Thank you. Saron, you have a point you want to make?
Yeah. So I think for me, the question was, what's the hardest part, right? The most challenge, the biggest challenge. I think for me, the biggest challenge is working with data that I don't always know how to interpret. Because you get like data points, right? And it's kind of up to you to draw conclusions, to make the right analysis, that sort of thing. And I feel like what I struggle with is, someone will say, for example, I was testing out the landing page, and I had a couple people say to me, well, I don't like that the pricing is all the way at the bottom. I wanted to come sooner. So then I took that, and I could have said, okay, people have been saying this, let me just move the pricing. But I was like, I don't know if I trust you. Let's do an A/B test. So then I tested the price at the bottom and the price in the middle, and the price in the middle did terribly. And I was like, see, you didn't know what you wanted, And so figuring out like who do you listen to? Who can you ignore? What do you make of the data? There's just so many unknowns. And I think for me, the hardest part is just, I feel like I'm constantly swimming in just this world of ambiguity and just uncertainty, and feeling confident in the decisions that I make, given that I'm making it with not a lot of insight and not a lot of information, is probably the scariest thing. And feeling like, especially when you make a big decision that takes like 3 months to execute. And then you're like, okay, I'm about to invest 3 months. If I'm not right, I wasted 3 months worth of runway, of time, of effort, and of people's time, right? The people who supported you and championed you and all that. And now I have to take a major step back. So I think for me, especially when it comes to those big decisions, it's flying not completely blind. It's not that bad, but it is making decisions that feel like it's on shaky ground. Not confident decisions that I feel like are always data backed. That's the part that makes me the most uncomfortable.
Thank you. I know we are probably at or almost at 10 minutes, so I just want a takeaway. So just one thing you want to tell our audience out there in this business of being an entrepreneur, there's one piece of advice you want to give them. Naya, you look like you ready. Saron.
I can start this one. So what I would say is, I think that and I blame Shark Tank for this entirely. I think that there is a lot of like entrepreneurship glorification out there. And I think there's a lot of just like, everyone should be an entrepreneur. It's the American dream. I think there's almost like a lot of like pressure to do this, and almost like, if you're not doing this, and like, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. I don't agree with that. And I would say that if you are considering being an entrepreneur, do it for yourself. Don't do it because you feel like that's what you should be doing. Don't feel like that's the only way to find freedom. there's a lot of freedom in working only a 40-hour work week and getting your weekends to yourself. That is a lot of freedom. So like, this isn't the only way to do it right or do it big or to be successful. But if you do decide this is for you, don't rush into it. Like, do it as a side hustle first. Do it nights and weekends first. Save your money first, because you are able to make much clearer decisions, more strategic decisions, smarter decisions. You have more leverage, so you can negotiate properly. Like, you really put yourself in a position of power the more runway and the more resources you have. So don't feel like, oh, I have an idea, I need to quit tomorrow and, go get an investment. Like, it doesn't need to be that fast. You can take it slowly, do it at your own schedule, at your own pace, and really make sure that you are doing it without making it as big of a financial risk as it could be. It doesn't need to be that risky. You can do it slowly and really take your time.
Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, so thank you. You actually mentioned 2 of the points I was thinking of. I was trying to think of trying to get down everything to just one point. So what I would definitely say is really helpful is to choose something that you actually are passionate about, because there's gonna be times when money is low. There's gonna be really hard times. And there's going to be times when you wake up one Monday and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is too much. Like, you just have these ups and downs. Then you have times where you doubt whether you should be doing this. And then sometimes you even get people in your ear that, are maybe they're doubting you, or maybe they're just not used to someone that they know being an entrepreneur. So they put their doubt and their fears on you. And so you are going to get that. And so I have to really say that just do something that you actually really care about, because you're going to pour all of your heart into it. And, I think too, just don't get so caught up into the whole entrepreneurship and whole of I'm a founder and all that sounds really great, except for when things get really hard. So that's all I have to say is choose something that you actually are passionate about, that you will stick through, and just don't get too caught up into all of the names, and just focus on building and just creating happiness for yourself.
Thank you. Yasmin.
Definitely. I would echo all of those sentiments. I would say, whether both sides of the same coin, don't, as it's already been said, don't go into entrepreneurship to make money, right? Obviously, you want to make some money, right? You've got to sustain, but create value, right? You create value, the money will come in triplicate, et cetera, exponentially. But whether you are planning on creating a business, that is a unicorn or not, when it comes to investors, the best advice that I've gotten is try to bootstrap as much as possible. Try to make as much money on your own terms without outside dollars as possible, because you want to have the leverage to be able to turn people away. Especially given the challenges that we face as Black women. I do not want to see any of us, lose out on all or the majority of their energy, their personal investment, blood, sweat, tears, all that good stuff to somebody who was able to take it away just because they had majority stake, right? So be very picky with who you let invest into your business and really in your life. And keep it moving come hell or pandemic, I guess, in the case of this year.
That is a great way to close out. Thank you, founders, for spilling all the tea and giving it to us real. And I hope we can get together again and do another segment. And where it's all about the real of the business, especially now in this pandemic. Again, thank you all. Y'all enjoy.
Thank you so much.
And I know Q&A is going to be a section, stuff like that next. So thank you so much. And talk to you all soon.
Yes. Take care.